Namaskar, I'm Ashok, and today is very, very special show. It is very exciting for me to be talking about something which relates to all of us. And I think none of us would be in a position to say that we don't use our mind. And what kind of a mentality you come across when you interact with people creates your experience. So when we hear the word mental health, it acquires more significance in the present context when a lot of people are caught up with the screen and many things are happening. But before I bring my guest for today and we talk about mental health situation in India, this is new India, I will mention that almost 20% people are facing emotional or behavioral problem, and how mental health is defined, etc. We will learn more about that from our esteemed panelist, Dr. Nitin Saraswat. Nitin ji, आपका स्वागत है. Welcome.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you for
So,
having me.
so, one, I would like to bring this to attention of our viewers that sitting in India, Nitinji is actually interacting with minds which are in different countries, helping them, consulting as life and mental well-being coach. So let us begin with the basic definition. When we say mental health, what do we mean, Nitinji?
Uh, the problem with the mental health is that it is the definition and how to categorize mental health. Both are very difficult because there are two parts of having a mental health issue. One is that can be diagnosed, and second is that is borderline, cannot be diagnosed, but believe me, it impacts the lives of you and people around you like anything. It is jokingly I tell it in India, especially in India, the two things that we never take care of until they start troubling us to the core, one is mental health and second is dental health. So until your teeth or your tooth starts creating a whole lot of trouble, you don't pay a hoot to it. Same way, unfortunately, the pain that mental well-being, not so well-being, creates is so subtle that it is very difficult to take a note of that. Even the person who is struggling with their mental health in the beginning, the people who cannot be clinically diagnosed, they can find it very easy to blame it on others or to blame it on the situation, etc., etc., etc. For just an instance example, a mental health issue can be an anger issue. A mental health issue can be a negative thought process issue. A mental health issue can be just anxiety issue, and you can just blame it on situations, people around you, a bad spouse, a bad job, etc., etc., etc.
And why would one not do that? Because it helps them in getting to a place where they can accept themselves better by blaming others. So, the data, the study of WHO tells us that in India, as we are talking about mental health, the number of people who are suffering depression is also quite huge, and those who are facing the problem of depression, how they actually accept that there is a problem of depression, because we love to deny that there is any such issue. Plus, we are not encouraged to talk because let's say you talked about anger issue and they say, "Oh, this is your nature; you have to control it." So,
Exactly.
and again, I will say that we cannot take mental health as a sort of escape route to continue to pamper pamper our mood swings. So, talk to me about where you draw the line. How? Yeah.
The word you said, mood swings. Why can't we pamper ourselves? I'm not saying we should use mental health as an excuse not to be perfect with our behaviors, not to be good with our behaviors, or not to be good at our work. But if there is an issue that has to be addressed, and for an issue to be addressed, the first thing is an issue has to be accepted that I have an issue. So that's why there are two parts. One, people who are mentally ill, who can be clinically diagnosed with a mental health problem. And second are the people, the category of people who have a borderline problem which might never get diagnosed, but which has been troubling them and the people around them. Like depression, the word used, it's a very loosely used term. One is clinical depression, a major depression disorder that can be diagnosed by a psychiatrist or a psychologist if you go to them. People with major depression often find themselves taking medical help, and often that help is also treatment with the pill. We as a culture do not encourage, and we do not see, still do not see value in talk therapy. We do not see that 90% of the mental health
Okay,
issues
so
can be resolved.
yeah, I just feel like sharing, or rather giving words to what many of your viewers might be thinking. The role of, forgive me, the life coach or the consultants or the psychiatrist, it became more prominent when we started losing the kind of communication which we had with family members, and there was someone we will seek their advice, whether it is scientifically the optimum kind of advice that you are getting, but it was kind of taking care. And now when World Health Organization tells us that there are 5.6 crores. That's a huge number, yet considering India's population is not that huge, and I suspect there would be more than 5.6 crore who are suffering from depression. But as we were working towards defining depression, so let me also mention the number of suicides are increasing, and I think that is the second stage of not being able to deal with your depression. Talk to me about it.
I always say, unfortunately, we just talk about suicides. Suicides are just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole lot problem when it comes to self harm. There are so many people who have been so used to self harming themselves, and they are never talked about. They are never taken seriously. That's why today in the in the talk with you, I just want to point out about people who cannot be clinically diagnosed as having any mental health issue, but they have borderline mental health issues, and where any coach, any counselor, any therapy can help them recover very, very fast. One
So, yeah. Sorry,
one category of people are very, very easily diagnosable. They can be detected. People who know, okay, I am going through a major depression episode. They can be very easily diagnosed. I will use three terms here: depression, PTSD, post trauma stress disorder, anxiety attacks, and fourth, you can say panic attacks. Now, these four are classical diagnoses which you can see people taking help for. Fifth, we can add OCD, very common. These terms are so common that a commoner has started using these terms in their communication also. They have become so, like, they come in the common language. But the problem is, still, a lot of people who are with a borderline issue of post trauma stress, a borderline issue of depression, a borderline issue of anxiety disorder, a borderline issue of panic attacks, they never reach out to any expert because they think that just not talking about it, hiding it, or just learning to manage it on their own can solve their problem. And
yeah, so allow me to mention that what you just said is what I was going to say. It is very difficult for anyone to come to that level of acceptance where one, he will say, "Oh, I'm feeling depression." Two, he will reach out to somebody who can help. But third is also important, which is who to reach out to. So from that point of view, how do you see the big challenge that we have from the point of view mental health awareness in India?
Not only in India, I think worldwide.
Very
I
well.
think worldwide. The only difference is I'm working with people from all five continents right now, and believe me, it's no different in America. People prefer to take a pill to sleep, but they will never understand that if they haven't been able to sleep, there's something wrong. I have a counseling client, a person I'm working with, who has been justifying making cuts on the body as just a way of dealing with pain,
Oh man, oh man.
just because it cannot be called suicide. It's just a small cut. I just make a small cut, or I just punch the wall because I want to release my anger or pain. And the person has been doing it for good 10 years.
Yeah. So
And when the person,
I'll just relate to my personal example, and this is just to sort of make others also feel that they could be in somewhat like this situation. I didn't do it, but what happened is I was preparing very much in my first year to get the kind of grades which would take me to engineering college. And one after appearing in one exam where, as I came out, I realized maybe I did one step wrong, and this will take away my 20 marks. And it was like so frustrating, Nitinji. I tell you, I felt like banging my head on the wall because I was so much attached to the outcome and realizing that this will take away a lot of things that I thought. So there are moments when either you do something which you feel is resulting into a sort of a very bad result, or somebody else becomes intolerable and you feel frustrated. So if I may request you to tell us, when you feel frustrated, impatient, and if you do not deal with it properly to get to the space of harmony, then it will lead you to disintegration and probably this depression or whatever. Yeah.
see, what we need to first understand is, unfortunately, we are not doing the easy part. I'm talking about, I want to talk about the difficult part here. But let me first talk about the easy part that is very easily doable. A majority of people have very clear mental health issues. Unfortunately, even those people do not reach a specialist or a doctor. They do not see a psychiatrist, they do not see a psychologist, they do not see a psychotherapist. That is very easy. What can be very easily diagnosed? A, clinical depression can be very easily diagnosed. Why? Because there are classical five symptoms of a clinical depressed person. Very easily you can diagnose a clinically depressed person. The person themselves will tell it, or the people around them can very easily make out this person is depressed. Very easily you can find out people who have panic attacks. Very easily you can find out people who have problems with anxiety attacks. They are very strikingly visible. You can see that. And all you need to do is, very easily, we know as a protocol, we know if somebody goes through a trauma, there is a huge possibility of the person going through a post trauma stress disorder. Any person who went through an accident, any person who went through a demise in the family, any person who tried for success and couldn't succeed for a very very long time, there's a huge possibility of the person going through post trauma stress disorder. Even adding to this list, nowadays, the postpartum depression, the depression the mothers are facing after the birth of a child, it's becoming very very common. These things are easily noticeable, as easily noticeable as, for more than for a longer period of time daily, you see lack of sleep or extreme sleep, lack of eating or extreme eating. You see loss of interest in everything. The person is going through. either clinical depression, or the person is, if there is an event that has happened, accident that has happened.
Okay, so let me seek your input on what you just said. If there is lack of interest in anything, so these people who are in that mental state, they want to stay alone and they want to hide something and they don't know what they are hiding. But there is lack of enthusiasm in interacting or indulging in any even entertainment, etc. So how, if somebody is in that state, what is the best way out?
For, let me please complete what I was I want.
Okay,
I want to establish one thing first:
sure, sure.
the easy versus the difficult part. This is easy part because this will happen for months, and then the people around or the person who is going through can very easily see, I haven't been able to sleep for more than a month, I haven't been able to eat properly for more than a month, for more than a month or two I haven't been able to take interest in anything, I want to be alone, I feel like crying, or I don't feel like sharing my emotions with someone. Okay, it's so easy. But what is difficult is when people are going through bouts of what we call mood disorder, or mood swings, what we have so easily have called. These are the borderline issues, which the number might go into, I dare say, 50% of the population of the world, because these things can become a mental health issue or might not become a mental health issue. And this is where I think any coach or any counselor will work the best, because it's like taking a preventive medicine. You have to start training yourself for handling emotions. You have to start training yourself for a positive attitude. You have to start training yourself for stress management, anxiety management. Before these things start knocking at your door, the most creative approach towards mental well being is, let's start facing them head on. Let's
Okay, so
start taking
yeah,
time.
and I will now interrupt again to kind of connect what you just said, handling your emotions, and the question that I was asking you. I think if you do not handle your emotions properly, then you reach sometimes to a stage where you have a very thick kind of inertia and you're not interested in anything. So it is easy to say that handle your emotions, but how? So give us some tips on how to handle emotions.
The problem is when we say handling emotion or emotional intelligence, it is all part of our attitude building. So, a person, we are born with a connect deep within. But unfortunately, the way we grow up, we start losing that connect within. So, we start taking our happiness for granted. And that's where we make our first mistake in handling emotions. Happiness, like any other activity, has to be created. It's like happiness is
No, no,
an
no, no,
activity.
no, 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 no. You are saying that we take our happiness for granted. What else will we do when things are happening favorably? People are in agreement with you. Everything is hunky dory. Then you will take it. I mean, what did you do is something that. I mean, I'm thinking when you are saying you take it for granted. What else will I do?
I will learn to create and in, ignite happiness inside me. It's like what a child is capable of doing. You see a child getting disappointed, and the mobility of a child is so fast that if you disappoint a child, within 15 minutes the child will find something to make the child happy. The child will not wait for something to make the child happy. As we grow older, unfortunately, we start thinking it's cosmos, the almighty's responsibility to make us happy.
Yeah. So
It's not the universe problem that you have a sadness. It is your problem, and you have to find a solution to it.
So finding solution is important, and proactively we need to find solutions for ourselves. So today we are focusing, Nitin, more on the way an individual should or may deal with his mental well-being. And one more session we will have where you are surrounded by, not surrounded, but there is one person, maybe your spouse, husband, wife, daughter, son, whosoever, who has mental health issue and how to deal with that. We will have a separate session on that. But today I want to come to the very frequently used term where people say, I'm burnout, I need vacation." Then they don't go for vacation. They keep on having that, and then there comes a stage which is probably not a very healthy state. So talk to me about this process and how uh, to sort of get premonition or sort of proactive idea as to now is the cutoff time for me, and now I need to do some change either in my lifestyle, my work pattern, etc., so that I don't fall, I don't slip, etc. Talk to me about the stage of burnout.
Thank you for this bringing up this question, because the the bigger problem with the corporate world that is coming is burnout, and the corporate world is facing the brunt of this burnout, because there are a lot of people who are not able to work to their potential after a certain time, and there are many reasons for a person to have the burnout. The first reason is the poor work life balance. You'll be surprised to know that even in America, the work life balance situation is very, very bad. I'm working with so many Americans who are not in IT field, and they complain a lot that their companies make them work for more than 12 hours a day. And believe me, if you are working for more than 12 hours a day, the burnout is just around the corner. So, for a healthier company, a healthier employee is needed. And for a healthier employee, the first thing that a company needs to ensure, that is that you should not be working for more than 10 hours a day. That is the maximum a human mind can sustain. And then those 10 hours are over, there has to be a complete switch off, from the work to their personal life. The problem is, if the personal life is as stressful as the work or more stressful as the work, then they have no unwinding. So how to find unwinding? Because if you have been working on a laptop for 10 hours, and then your unwinding is watching, you're scrolling over your phone, then unfortunately you are tiring yourself again.
So
Spending some time with the family members, spending some times with the loved ones, some socializing, some activity which is connected to the nature, that is what is the prescribed way of unwinding is.
very well said, Nitin. Why I was tempted was when you said human mind and 10-hour limit. I was reminded of India's prime minister, but then I said there are some people who are exceptional, or maybe leaving that part aside, coming back to the main theme where we may conclude this conversation just few minutes to go, and that is earlier you were mentioning that the higher purpose is also important in the context of mental health. So if you just think that this is my race and if it doesn't happen, then I'm not existing, etc. So talk to me about the importance of a higher purpose in life and how to sort of get that, get that.
So the first motivation in the life is to prove yourself. So we all are motivated because we want to prove to the world. When you're a child, you are nobody, so you want to prove it to the world that you exist. So that's the first purpose of life. The second purpose of life is sometimes what I call at a lower purpose is to gain fame or gain money or a position, etc., etc. But what we call higher purpose is when you can make a difference, when you can work towards something that is for the for a circle which does not have you as a center only. So when you have a higher purpose, say you want to make a difference to the society, you want to create something for the humanity, or you want to make something so big that a lot of people can be benefited by it, then that higher purpose gives you immense motivation. It takes away your burnout, and it is for sure going to add a lot of bliss to your life. So finally, if you ask me, a lot of mental health issues can go away if we can learn to be a little selfless, if we can learn to have gratitude, and if we can learn to have higher purpose in our life.
Wow. So, age old principles are coming back from Dr. Nitin Saraswat, also having the sense of selflessness, which again is not what we are conditioning our kids as they are growing. You are encouraged to be go getter, and gratitude also is replaced many times by attitude to be in certain state where people look up to you, etc. But and many times what we are talking, since we are talking from emotional point of view, as also uh, in terms which are not directly reflecting the economic side of it. So I'll bring some small data for you and for our viewers. So while the India's National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience found that nearly 150 million Indians are in need of mental health care, and only 30 million Nitinji are seeking care. Now, this reflects their efficiency. This reflects manpower, hours lost, and when the compilation is made as to how much the loss, that turns to staggering billions of dollars. So we are not talking about or 5 cents here. We are talking about billions. And I would even go one step further, Nitinji. I think every human being is so precious, and each moment which is now is not going to come back. And how you experience it is it cannot be quantified in any sort of monetary terms. Your final take on this situation?
I would strongly recommend everyone that once in a lifetime, please do go to a counselor or a coach. Why? Because if you think you do not have a mental well being issue, doesn't matter. It's just like getting your hemoglobin checked once in a while. So it's always good to create a habit to start visiting counselors, coaches, mental well being coaches as a part of our regular routine. And remember, when we talk about mental health, it's not just your problem. It might be because of your mental health, so many people around might be in problem. There's a very beautiful joke in the fraternity of mental health people with the mental health, working with the mental health. They say most of the people come to the counseling because anybody around them who needed it decided not to go. So, because of someone's a bad boss, a bad father, a bad spouse can create a lot of mental health issues around a lot of people. So, not for you, for your loved ones, for your society, for your nation, and for a better world, let's start taking our mental health, our mental well being very, very seriously.
So we take your word seriously, and we talked about mental health awareness, and that is where exactly you have taken us. So being aware, and this also helps us in finding an excuse to introspect. And introspect is very very important to know ourselves. Age old solution to everything is know thyself, and everything will be all right. So maybe thank you very much. You helped us in understanding ourselves a
Thank you
little
very
bit
much.
better, Nitinji. I appreciate it. So thanking him
Thank you very
and
much.
thanking all of you with lots and lots of good wishes. This is Ashok.